We're already a few weeks into 2021, so Derrell, how does cattle numbers and beef supply look?
Well, we're trying to figure out where we are exactly with the longer-term cattle cycle numbers. USDA will be giving us the annual cattle inventory report at the end of January, but it looks like cattle numbers continue to get a little bit smaller. They were a little bit smaller in 2020 compared to 2019, which was the peak. So that means that probably we're going to see a little bit tighter supplies as we go through the year. We're starting the year with feedlot inventories about equal to last year, but as we move through the year, we should see that tighten up a little bit as we sort of use up the feeder cattle in the pipeline. And beef production is expected to be down somewhere between 1% and 2% probably in 2021.
A few weeks ago when we talked, you were talking about beef demand in 2020, and it was surprising that demand held pretty strong. So how does demand look for 2021?
Well, again, given that basis, we still got a lot of challenges. Obviously, the pandemic is not controlled yet. We still have the issues with the food service side being restricted. A lot of the emphasis is still on the retail grocery side. All of that said, beef demand has held up pretty well under those circumstances, and so at this point in time, we don't see that changing very much. And obviously, as we go through the year and hopefully get the pandemic under control, then we see a little bit more typical kind of balance between the food service and the retail grocery sector.
So are there any other important factors that are going to play a role in 2021 in regards to the cattle markets?
There's a couple of things we're watching right now. Probably the biggest one is, of course, the fact that grain prices have increased so much in the last part of 2020 with strong export demand, and so feed costs are going to be higher. That's going to affect feedlot ration cost in particular, feedlot cost to gain. That has implications for the feeder cattle market. And it'll affect other sectors as well to some extent. So we'll be watching that. And of course, we've got widespread drought in parts of the country, which it's not really an issue right now in winter time, but if this persists on into the spring and into the growing season, then we could have some real issues with the drought impacts on forage production and potentially impact cattle markets.
So, going forward, and, again, it's really hard to, speculate on what cattle prices are going to be like given all the factors you just mentioned, but what do you anticipate?
Well, at this point in time, I guess I would say cautiously optimistic that we see a little bit of improvement in cattle prices on an annual average basis. Not a huge amount, probably 5 to 10%, somewhere in that range at this point. I do think that, it may be kind of a tale of two halves of the year. I think we're going to continue to struggle a little bit here through the first part of the year, trying to get things under control, get the vaccinations in place, and sort of get the economy hopefully back on a little bit more typical track. The second half of the year, if we're successful in that, we could see some additional strength in that market, but probably modestly higher prices on an annual average basis.
Well, that's how I like my caution, with a little bit of optimism sprinkled in there. All right, thanks, Derrell. Dr. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.